Hello everyone, Professor Christensen here. This video is going to help walk us through the calculation of uncollectible accounts in this problem that you're doing for your assignment. There are a few different problems that use this, but for now this is Financial Accounting Chapter 5. And this is what I'm looking at here that's giving people a little bit of trouble. So we're going to have to make some adjusting entries, which remember are at the end of the period in order to fix up accounts that need to be adjusted to record revenues and expenses in the proper period. So what we have here is that company estimates future uncollectible accounts. They determine that 5,400 of accounts receivable on January 31st are past due, and 20% of those accounts are estimated to be uncollectible. The remaining accounts receivable are not past due, or so those are current, and 5% of these accounts are estimated to be uncollectible. All right, they give us a hint, use the January 31st accounts receivable balance calculated in the general ledger. All right, so you'll see I have the general ledger tab here open. I'm in the unadjusted general ledger. And our accounts receivable balance right now is $15,000. Okay? All right, so I'm going to click back and forth between this and Excel as we do our calculation. Okay? All right, so we have 54. So our total, all right, so here's our Excel. All right, so first step when you're making your adjustment for bad debts is you need to find the balance, the desired balance in the allowance. Okay? And our total accounts receivable right now, we said, is $15,000, right? Let me just make that into dollars. I don't really need cents, but that's okay. So our total accounts receivable is $15,000, and our past due accounts receivable we said is $5,400. So that means our current receivables are the balance. So current is the difference between the total and the past due accounts receivable. All right, so now what they told us is that 20%, well, we're not going to look at the total, 20% of our past due uncollectibles, our past due accounts receivable are uncollectible, and then 5% of our current receivables are uncollectible, or the ones that are not past due. Okay, so 20% of this, we're going to multiply, right? Because we're saying 20% of that is uncollectible, and 5% of this is uncollectible. Okay, so total uncollectible, total estimated, uncollectibles is equal to the sum of these two. Okay, so what we're saying is we estimate that $1,560 of our receivables are uncollectible. Now your problem is going to have similar numbers, and you're just going to do the same kind of calculation with different numbers. Okay, this here, remember, was a subtraction. Okay, because that is equal to that minus that. Okay, so our total estimated uncollectibles are 1,560. That's our desired balance. Now we compare our desired balance to the current balance in the allowance. Okay, so what is our current balance? Let's go back here, and we see our current balance is $200. Okay, so let's go back to our Excel. We're going to put in 200 as our current balance. Okay, and so what we're saying is, we're saying that we want our desired balance. We want $1,560 in our allowance. We have $200, so we need to increase allowance by the difference. The $1,560 minus the $200. Whoops. Why did that happen? Equals this minus that. There we go. $1,360. Okay, so that means our adjusting entry for this particular problem, remember our adjusting entry is always the same. We're going to debit bad debt expense for $1,360. And then we're going to credit allowance for uncollectible accounts for $1,360. Okay, and now just to remind you what's going to happen in our allowance. So our allowance, let's make a little T account here. Allowance for uncollectible accounts. Our allowance had $200 in it, right? So that's our unadjusted balance. And then we have our adjusting entry. Our adjusting entry is equal to, remember we're increasing our allowance, we're crediting it by $1,360. So our adjusted balance is going to be the sum of those two. Okay. So our adjusted balance now will be $1,560 in our allowance. Okay, so I hope that helps. If you're having trouble with that assignment, this calculation can get a little bit tricky and it's a little different than some of the other things that you saw. Okay, as always, give a shout out if you need help. Okay, have a great day. See you on the next video.